Okay, it's 1 p.m., so we're going to get going. Welcome to Webinar 2 for CBE course development. Our speaker today is Dr. Amardeep Kahlon, who is currently the director of Fast Track to Success, a Perkins project at Austin Community College. She is also the project coordinator of the Texas Affordable Baccalaureate Project, a partnership between ACC and South Texas College. She is recognized expert in competency-based education and is currently holding CBE workshops around the state. She has presented on CBE at both local and national conferences. Dr. Kahlon has 27 years of experience in higher education as an educator and as an education leader. She has led innovative projects and has served as a founding dean of academics. With a graduate degree in computer science and a doctorate in higher education administration, she brings together the best of both fields into the education arena. I will ask for you, if you have questions along the way, just shoot them in the questions box and we'll get to those at the end. Dr. Kahlon, the floor is all yours.
Well, thank you, Carlos. Thank you for the lovely introduction. As you heard from Carlos, my name is Amardeep Kahlon, and I am at Austin Community College. So the purpose of today's webinar, or what I'm presenting to you, is course development for competency-based education. We started at Austin Community College. Our CBE program started in 2013. We had a Department of Labor grant, the TACT grant, and under that, in February, we got the grant. We had the whole luxury of about 5 months to develop our courses. Yes, that much time. And we had to get our first course online by the fall. I was actually leaving on sabbatical in June, so I had to get my course done by June. So Professor Renee Polanco of ACC and myself, we met with the instructional designer who is key to course development in CBE. You really can't do it without a good instructional designer. We met with her and we came up with a course framework which was then adopted across all the CBE courses that we developed. The course framework I will be presenting to you today in today's presentation. So instead of showing you a PowerPoint slide of what we did and how we did it, I'm going to show you my Blackboard course. And along the way, I'll tell you the rationale of what we did and why we did what we did. So I will start out with showing you one tab in student view and one tab in the instructor view. My course is Programming Fundamentals 1 with Python, Introduction to Python Programming. And the students come into a class. Mine is a 16-week class, but the same class, the same materials are being taught in 12-week and also in the 8-week classes. So the material can be used in any length of class that you have. So when students come into the class, this is the view that they see. They see a pinned announcement on top. Of course, you won't see this. This is the latest announcement that was posted. But what you essentially see is this pinned announcement about tutoring that's available. So the first announcement they see is about the support. Support systems are very important in CBE. And the support systems that we had for our program was incredible tutors, lots of tutoring hours available, and we also had our academic coach or our student support specialist who was on top of the progress of every student in our CBE program. Our CBE program was called the Accelerated Programmer Training, and I will refer to it as APT along the way. When the students come in, the first thing they have to do is complete a course orientation. It's very important in competency-based education to set the expectations for the students, for them to know exactly what they're getting into. So even before they come to the class, what they get from me is they get a letter that looks like this. It's a 4-page letter. Yes, it's very intense, but what they get is they get to see exactly what are the expectations out of this course. So the first module they have to complete is a course orientation. The course orientation is basically setting the stage for the course, telling them what are the expectations, and in the orientation, the objectives are listed for the orientation. What do they expect to gain out of this module, and what do they expect to know at the end of this module? They have things to read. One of the things to read is the orientation. It's a PowerPoint, and the PDF version is put up on the screen so that people can read it on their mobile devices. They don't need to have Microsoft PowerPoint on their device. And here, the question that's asked for them at the beginning is, are you ready for distance learning? And they follow the link. Resources that are there to help you along. The FAQ for the course, the distance learning website, the ACC tutoring, and my office hours on Web Connect. What do they need to do to complete the classwork? What are the minimum computer skills that are required of them? What are the general course guidelines for the course? What are the communication guidelines to communicate with me in the course? How do they seek help? And this is very important. How can they get help for the course? Because we all know, as faculty members, we all know that one of the reasons that students drop out of courses, or one of the reasons they fail to complete the course with a successful grade, is because they don't get the help. So that is the one document that they see in the course orientation. A second document that they see is the email etiquette. And this is basically telling them what are the expectations for email, how can they address me, how can they email me, and steps to success document. Again, very wordy document, but it's an important document, and it gives them the 7 steps to success. And the most important step, which I stress to them, is this one: ask early, ask often. Ask the questions, because until they ask the questions in an online class, we cannot know what they are looking for. We have the syllabus. The syllabus is your standard syllabus, which gives my office hours, which gives how they can get in touch with me, the rationale for the course, the objectives for the entire course, the grade breakdown, and the course policies. So there's nothing unique or exotic about this syllabus. The course schedule is a little bit unique, and I'm showing you the course schedule for this semester. My course schedule is not listed by date. Normally, when you see a course schedule, it's listed with the date in the leftmost column, and then the activities and the submission requirements. In this case, the date is in the rightmost column, and the date says last due date. The reason it says last due date is because my students can accelerate through the program. And because they can accelerate through the program, there is a last due date. They can turn in something before this date, but definitely not after this date. After they turn in something after this date, there is a penalty. So let's look at this. For example, Competency Module 2. The competency is write a working program that uses decision control structures. What are the module activities? They have to read chapters 3 and 4 in the text. They have to watch the module videos. They have to complete the learning log, and they have to complete these activities. And then it tells them what are the submission requirements and what is the last due date, which was just a few days ago. My students see this course schedule, and they have been, the feedback that I have got about this course schedule is fairly positive. Then they have a link in the orientation and the things to read, getting ready for Adobe Connect. They have to make an appointment with me to do an online face-to-face Adobe Connect orientation with me. That is mandatory. It has to be done. Unless it's done, they cannot see Module 1. So when they come into the course, besides seeing all this, the last thing that I will show you is in the orientation is this orientation form that they must complete, and they must send the form. So these are the orientation activities, and after they have completed all the orientation activities, they get to take what is the orientation quiz. And they can take the orientation quiz as many times as they want, but they have to score 100% on it to be able to proceed in the course. The entire course is set up as an adaptive release. So in the course, when the students first come in, and you can see that on the screen it says student preview mode is on. If you know Blackboard, then now they're looking at what the students will see when they come into the course. So when they click on competency modules, this is all they see. They don't see anything other than this. They cannot see competency 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 because it's adaptive release. Once they have completed all the orientation activities, they will be able to see competencies or competency 1. Once they've completed all the activities for competency 1, they will be able to see competency 2. And then once they've completed 2, they'll be able to see 3. So you get the idea what's happening here and how the adaptive release works. So this is all they can see in the competency module. They can see the submission instructions. They can see the open lab schedule. They can see the tutoring schedule. They can see some of the tools such as My Grade, discussion board. They can send an email to me, and they can see the course calendar. Okay, so this is what the students see when they first come into the course. Once they have submitted the orientation, they can see the competency modules. So let us go ahead and look at what is in the competency modules. Let's look at competency 1. What is included in competency module 1? When Professor Polanco and I met with Ningua, who was our instructional designer, like I said, we came up with a course framework that was then used across almost all of our CBE sections that we taught. And we developed 42 courses under this Department of Labor grant, and almost all 42 courses use this framework. So the framework that we came up with was this. We have an introduction to the competency module. We have learning objectives for that competency module, which at a future time can also be broken down into sub-competencies. We have a read it section, we have a watch it section, and we have a do it section. Okay, so our philosophy, our framework was read it, watch it, do it. So in the read it section for competency module 1, they have 2 PowerPoints, they have a chapter from the text, they have all this other stuff they have for reading, and then they have a watch it section. The watch it section is a bunch of videos, a lot of them recorded by me. If it's an external video, I make a note of it that note this is an external video. This video on binary number conversions is a video from Khan Academy. The rest of the videos have been recorded by me, and they have been recorded using a software called Jing. Jing is no longer available, but they can also be recorded using Camtasia. It's very easy to record your screen or to record a video using Camtasia. In this video, and I'll show you a snippet of a video. For example, let's look at this video. This video is recorded in Camtasia, and once I play the video, it has different sections to it. I'm going to click on this section, and I'm going to go to the end of this. So if they're watching this video off my web space on ACC, they can take a little quiz at the end of the video. So I can just randomly answer the questions of this quiz. And at the end of it, they can submit the answers, and they can view the answers and see what they got right and what they got wrong. If they're viewing this video on YouTube, this quiz is not available because it's not interactive on YouTube. Okay, so I'm going to close that window. that's what our videos look like. And every module has plenty of videos to explain the concepts of that module. Um, if we start looking further into the competency module, let me go back to 1 again. After the Watch It section, they have to do a journal. And yes, I know it's a computer science course, but they have to still write a learning journal. And this is what the learning journal looks like. It's basically a Word document. And in this Word document, they have to answer 3 questions. The first question is, reflect on what you learned in this competency module from the readings, from the labs, and from the videos that you watched. The second question is, tell me the most interesting item you learned in this competency module. And the third question is, tell me one thing you did not understand in this competency module. This learning journal, I have used it for many, many, many years. I call it the learning log. It's used across many universities and colleges use similar kind of learning tools. For example, MIT uses what is called the Muddy cards, in which students write something similar. Here in this learning journal, this forces them, to reflect on what they've learned and how they've learned, to reflect on something that they did not learn. And along the way, they may have had an aha moment, which we all live for those aha moments with the students, don't we? And to write down that aha moment here, which is the most interesting thing that they learned. So this is the other deliverable for this competency module. Then they're given a lab example. And I'll give you a more detail, I'll show you a more detailed example of a lab example in a minute. But this is a simple example about the lab example. There's an example about conversions, doing metric to standard conversions. And it's basically a video which I have recorded, and they can go through this video and they can watch this video. They have a sample pseudocode, and here is a sample pseudocode in which they're given the sample, and this red squiggly line is not a spelling error in Word, it's red squiggly lined on purpose to show them what are some of the important things in this problem. And they're also given the code with this lab example. So every competency module has a lab example in it. Learning log, lab example, and then they get to the actual lab. What is in the lab? There's lab project 1A and there's lab project 1B. And I'm going to go back to here and exit the student preview and go to competency module 1 of the current semester and show you what the labs are in the current semester. In the current semester, they again have 2 parts to the lab, and I'm going to go to part B, which is a Richter project, which is they take in from the user a Richter value and they convert it to the joules of energy that's converted from that and the amount of energy of exploded TNT that's converted. They're given a lot of information, as you can see with the lab. It's not just a simple paragraph that's given to them. They're also given links to follow to check their results. They're given some helpful hints. They're given the sample output. So they have a lot of information to work on this lab. And they're also given the information in the video orientation when they do that with me, is that this is a lab that they're going to be working on throughout the semester. So they know that they have to get this lab right. So going into the competency modules, I'm going to show you a more detailed lab example, which is right here. In this, they're given first a PDF, and because we are in Texas, we are in Austin, who better to use than the Dallas Cowboys as an example? And they're given this PDF, the example. they're given how I work through the solution with a paper and a pencil. What are the most important items? For each function, they're told what is the information that will be required, what are the inputs that are required, what are the outputs that are required, what are the functions that I use. And for each function, I go through this and I tell them what is required for each function. What is the output required? And at this point, they're told, well, now that you have worked through this with paper and pencil, now you're ready to start coding. And they're also given a link to a video. And this video goes through exactly what I just showed you. It goes through all of these pages that I just showed you. And a little slow, bear with me here. Okay, we'll come back to that. That's just a slow internet connection that's having trouble getting to that video. So you get the idea that in this video, they are shown exactly this PDF, the entire PDF is explained through this video. And I'm going to cut out this tab so we're not using that resource. And here is the Python file, and there's another video on variable scope and parameters that's given to them. Going back to the competency module again, besides the do it, which is a lab, they also have to do 2 module assessments. The first module assessment tests their concepts, and the second module assessment is a hands-on module assessment that they're required to do, in which they have to write a program. And they're given 3 chances to complete each assessment. They can do this at their home. They're told that the test is very much like the assessment. So the module assessment looks like this. It's a timed assessment, and it's not just an assessment that has multiple choice. Write a statement that does this, write a statement that does this, and they're required to look at code and say, what would the following code do? So it's not just multiple choice. I'm going to close this up and leave. And then the other part of the module assessment is the hands-on, where they write a program that will do the following, and they have to then submit the Python file that they created with that program. So this is what a typical module in my course looks like. It has all of these sections: the introduction, the learning outcomes, the read it, the watch it, the lab example, the learning log, the do it, and the module assessments. So as you can see, anybody can look in this course and look at the rigor that is in this course. How do I do the adaptive release? I want to show you that. When I go to the competency modules, competency 1, if I look at the adaptive release rules, and I'm going to increase the size of that so you can see it. Rule 1, they have to have scored 100% in the orientation quiz. Rule 2, they should have an attempt at the orientation form. They should have completed that orientation form, or at least had an attempt at it. And how does this get resolved? In my gradebook, I have 4 columns: the orientation quiz, which is auto-graded by Blackboard, the orientation, which is a grade that I enter, the letter response, a response to the letter that I showed you earlier, which they get before the semester starts. That's a grade that I enter. A video orientation, and that's a grade that I enter. The video orientation grade is only given to them after they complete the video orientation with me, which is done through Adobe Connect. And every student is required to do that. And because this is a distance learning class, I realize that my students have different working schedules. So I schedule video orientations at 4 different times of the day. I schedule one at 7 a.m. in the morning, one at noon, one at 6 p.m. in the evening, and one at 9 p.m. at night, so that no student can tell me that this orientation didn't fit into their schedule. However, there are cases. I have a student, for example, this semester who works as a nurse, and she works 12-hour shifts Monday through Thursday. She couldn't fit any of the video orientations in her schedule, so I did one for her on a Friday morning. So I'm accommodating of my students' work schedule. So once they have submitted the orientation form and it is complete, I put a check mark in the gradebook. And in the Blackboard gradebook, that's a text score, and it's got a 0, and it's that's a score that has a complete and complete score that has a grade value of 0. Once I enter a 0, it puts a green check mark. The letter response, once I receive the letter response through email from them, I put a check mark in there. And the video orientation, once they complete that with me, I put a check mark in the gradebook. So once all of these are there, they're now allowed to see Module 1. Let me go back here. For Module 2, the adaptive release rules become different. They just have to have an attempt. They have to have an attempt for Lab Project 1A, 1B, the hands-on assessment, the assessment, and the learning log. So even if one of them is missing, they cannot see Module 2. So this is how the course is set up as an adaptive release course. Now, how do I foster a sense of community in an online class, and particularly in a class where students could be at different portions of the course, at different levels in the course? Okay, so fostering a sense of community is done through the discussion board and through my Adobe Connect sessions. So the only Adobe Connect session that I have with them is not the orientation. I keep having repeated Adobe Connect sessions with them, and I keep asking them to join these sessions. It's not mandatory. The Adobe Connect sessions that I do during the semester are not mandatory. Usually when I have a session, for example, at my last session, I just put out a time. I said I will be having an Adobe Connect session at this time. And I had about, I think it was 8 students who joined the session, which I think is a pretty large chunk of students. Okay, so how do I determine the time of the session? It's not an arbitrarily determined time. On Google Drive, I can create a simple form, and I share this form with them, and I give them a slot of 3 times, and I say the most popular time slot is the one that will be the winner for this Adobe Connect session. So that is one way to foster a sense of community. They're able to talk to each other. They're able to talk to me. Another way to foster a sense of community is to have a discussion board. And this is a discussion board. And as you can see, the items in this discussion board are not necessarily related to the course. Where they have items related to the course is any questions. And since this morning, 3 students have posted there, so I have to go in and read those 3 posts right after this webinar. Okay, so here they're given a news item. Here's the news story. And the news story says Interscatter enables first implanted devices. And basically they're going to read this news item and they're going to have an interactive discussion about it. Similarly, they have these news threads. Here is another news thread which they have, which isn't driving hard enough as it. They're given a link. And here is a forum, this just in which they can share interesting items that they have found as they're surfing the web, as they're surfing the net, or items that may have been shared with them. And they can post their own thoughts and views about technologies. They can post news. And so this is how I foster a sense of community in the online class. They have, again, they have many ways of communicating with me. They can They can chat with me through Google Chat. They can connect with me through Adobe Connect. Um, they can call me. I give them a cell phone number, not my cell phone number, but I have an app called Text Free, which gives me a free phone number as long as I use it once a month. And I give that out as a cell phone number. And or they can email. And they can email anyone in the class. Um, I tell them this when I do the video orientation with them. So this, in a nutshell, is my CBE course, Programming Fundamentals 1, Introduction to Programming with Python. So at this point, I think I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to open it up to questions if anyone has questions, which I'm hoping you do, about this course. And I'm going to wait for the questions to come in.
Dr. Kahlon, thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. And the questions have already started to come in, so I will read them to you. Okay, we have, how many students do you typically have at a time in your CBE course?
Okay, so we have our on distance learning classes typically have 20 students in the class. And so at the most, if we overload the class, we might go up to, 23 or 24 students, but we have roughly between, so let's say roughly between 20 and 24 students.
Perfect. Do you use online tutoring such as tutor.com?
We do use online tutoring, but we don't use third-party service. We have Smart Thinking. I believe our college uses Smart Thinking. But there is no good tutoring with Smart Thinking. We have a tutor, for example, here, this announcement, I'm putting that up on the screen. Our tutor at the campus, which is my home campus, offers tutoring through Web Connect, Adobe Connect. A lot of my students take advantage of that, and they connect with him through Adobe Connect, so they don't have to come into a campus to get tutoring.
Okay. Here's a good one. Do you add captions to your own videos? If so, what vendor or program do you use to generate your captions? Are the third-party videos you use captioned?
The third-party videos I use, for example, the ones from Khan Academy, are captioned, definitely, but there are videos that I might pick up from YouTube. For example, let me show you one of them here. And I'm going to go to this lab and show you here. These are the YouTube links that I've given to the students in the labs in the notes about this assignment. And these links generally may or may not be captioned. Now, as far as the captioning of my videos, let me go here and go to the Watch It section. If you see the captioned versions here, this was captioned under our Department of Labor grant. We had our multimedia developer, Chris, who captioned all these videos herself. And even now, she was absorbed by the college full time. We can send her videos that we create, and she is happy to caption them.
Great. Given you use Blackboard, does your college use a CRM or a tool like Starfish Early Alerts and Connect?
Blackboard has early alert systems built in there. We have early warning systems built in. So we don't use a separate CRM. We use what is built into Blackboard.
Okay.
And by the way, I want to mention here, I mentioned earlier our student support specialist, our academic coach. She was our gold mine, literally. I don't even want to say gold mine, diamond mine, in fact. The professors who were teaching our APT sections, which is Accelerated Program and Training sections, they would get in touch with her, and she could get in touch with the student to see why a student was falling behind. So that was another intervention that we had with the students. The APT section was not open to all students. The reason we had such a successful CBE program is because our department chair worked very hard to select who would go into the program. So our first stop was the student support specialist, and then every single student, we have 1,005 students who have gone through our CBE program. Every single student was interviewed by our department chair. To make sure that they were able to handle the rigor of an online accelerated program. So students could not sign in for these for the CBE sections on their own. They had to go in and get registered by the student support specialist. In fact, there's a note on our course schedule that this section, for every CBE section, that this section is reserved for students in the APT program. Okay, go ahead. Next question, Carlos.
Great, and they keep on coming, so I'll just read them to you.
Sure.
Okay? Are discussions required? If so, how do you time the discussions if the course is at your own pace?
The course is really not at their own pace. It is at their own pace if they want to accelerate. But if they want to stay guided almost, then they have to follow the course schedule, which gives a last due date. So it's really not a self-paced course. I have tried a truly self-paced course, and I kid you not, nobody started the work until 2 weeks before the end of the semester. And it was a disaster, a truly self-paced course. So the discussions, and which is why, let me go back to the discussion board, which is why the discussions themselves are not related to course topics. The discussions that are related to course topics are in the any questions. And what I've seen in the past, and I've seen that happening this semester as well, what I've seen is, pardon me, what I've seen is that students who have completed a part of the course will jump in and they will help the other students when these kind of discussions start, discussions about the course. So that works out as an asset for the course. So students who are ahead, who are accelerated, will come back and they will start guiding the students who are either lagging behind or struggling. And I think that itself builds a sense of community in the course.
Okay. Next question. How do you ensure mastery to move from one competency to the next? I think I saw that you only wanted them to attempt competency 1 before moving on.
They have to attend competency 1 to move on to competency 2. They have to complete competency 2 to move on to competency 3. They complete competency 3 to move on to competency 4. So they really cannot move on in the competencies unless they have completed the prior competency.
Okay.
So the entire course is adaptive release.
Next question.
And one more thing, Carlos. I want to add one more thing to that. In my syllabus, it states we have 3 tests in the class, and we have to have, and I'm going to open the syllabus again, we have to have the tests, firstly, to satisfy regulatory requirements to show mastery. It says here, students must score 70% on each test in order to pass the whole class. So they have to have that level of mastery, even in the tests. Go ahead, Carlos.
Perfect. Do you implement smarter measures in your CBE courses?
We haven't, I believe there's some instructors who implement something like smarter measures. What I implement is this, what you've seen here, is that they must complete the one competency before they move on to the next. And the assessments, all my assessments, even the module assessments and the tests are tied back to the competencies.
Okay. How do you meet the requirements for substantive faculty interaction, specifically the faculty-initiated part?
So going back to my Adobe Connect sessions, that's a faculty-initiated interaction where I will send them the form that says, tell me one time that suits everyone, and then I set up the Adobe Connect session with which I interact with them. The other way I have a faculty-initiated interaction is if I see that a student has done something wrong in the lab, even if it's something minor, I will email the student and say, um, I see you are having trouble with this. We can either speak on the phone, we can connect through Adobe Connect, or um, I can email you an explanation of what's going on. That's a faculty-initiated interaction. The other interaction that happens with the whole class is every Monday I have what is called a Monday update that's issued to the class. So every Monday they get an email from me, or they get an announcement in Blackboard that is the Monday update that's given to the class. Um, Other than that, I interact with them through the discussion board as well. So that's how I do the substantive and frequent interaction with the students.
Perfect. Now I have gotten four different questions around the same subject, so I'm going to read
Okay.
one and hopefully we can hit everything on this point. So the question
Sure.
is, must students earn 70% by the last due date in order to move on in the course? If they don't achieve 70%, do they fail the course?
So I used to have the 70% by the last due date. It's not by the last due date. The last due date is when they last turn it in. But once the labs are graded, but I found that most of my students were doing that, so I made it an attempt. But the students cannot pass the course unless they make 70% on each test. There are 3 tests in the class, and if they don't make 70% on the lab, they really can't move on in the course because of the way my labs are set up. And I want to just go back to the competency module, and I'm going to open competency 3 again, and I'm going to open the lab, which is a do it, and I'm going to go to Richter 3A, and it says for this part of the lab you will work further on the Richter lab you modified in lab project 2A. So that lab continues throughout the semester. If they haven't made a 70% on the previous, they really can't continue with the lab. So I have a lot of interventions which I run myself with the students. If I see anybody falling below that 70% mark, I run that intervention immediately with them and get with them to make sure they get caught up.
Excellent. Follow up on that question, they ask, how was, why did you choose 70% and not 80%? And is this the criterion used across all of Austin Community College's CBE courses?
I'm not aware of the other CBE courses, what each instructor is doing. I use 70% because ACC gives ABC grades, and generally the C is between 70 and 80%, and anything ABC counts as a valid prerequisite, and it counts as a valid transfer grade. Below 70%, ACC also gives a D grade, which is 60 to 70%. Generally, that's the accepted percentage for that. Now, a D is not a valid prerequisite or a valid transfer grade. So that is why I use the 70% as the mastery. Now, that doesn't mean that that's what everyone uses. I know, for example, the program Carlos at Texas A&M Commerce, the bachelor's program, they use 80% as the mastery. And I know there are other community colleges out there that use 80% as a mastery. But generally, I've seen a lot of institutions, heard of a lot of institutions that use 70%. And my logic for using 70% is the ABC grades.
Perfect. Here's an interesting question. If the student fails the course, can they retake it again? And if so, how many times can they retake the course?
Okay, so Texas has a law, the 123 law, where they can retake it 3 times. Once they take it a 4th time, they have to pay a substantially higher tuition for that course. So students can retake it as many times as they want. However, I am hoping that once they go to advising, and if they've retaken the course twice, and if they've taken the course twice and not done well, the advisor is going to sit down with them, or if they come to me for advising, if I'm going to sit down with them and say, look, you've taken the course twice. This is the grade you've made. which is not a satisfactory grade. Do you think that perhaps this is a field that is not the best field for you? And then not just leave it at that, but work with the student also to figure out what may be the best field for them at that point.
Correct. Here's a more broader question. What were the
Sure.
reasons why ACC went with Blackboard instead of a different LMS that has more CBE-friendly features?
Okay, so I'm going to give a shout out to Seth Wilkerson here. Seth Wilkerson was our Blackboard administrator, is our Blackboard administrator, and for the longest time he was the only person in that office handling Blackboard. Now he has somebody else with him. So our college has over 50,000 students. So one person handling the LMS, that was the LMS that was with the college. We for one department, for one program, we did not think that it was feasible from a resources point of view, and by resources I mean people, technology, and money point of view, to go with a separate LMS.
Okay, let's see what else we have here. I see the course has an orientation, but is there also an orientation students must go through after enrollment but before taking the courses?
We do have what is called a student success course, which students who've never done college before, which they have to take. But there is, I do not believe there is an orientation for students who are enrolling in the APT program and APT program orientation. There is an info session that's held, and then our student support specialist on an individual student-to-student basis had sort of a mini orientation, if you will, where she gave them all the expectations of what to expect out of the program and how to succeed in the program and how to get through the program.
Perfect. One more, if you have due dates and it's guided, how do students accelerate?
The due dates are the last due date. It's the last due date. It's the last date by which students can turn in the deliverables for that competency module. So let me go back to the course schedule, and they can accelerate by, for example, Competency 2 is due on Tuesday, February 21. I've had at least 3 students who had Competency 2 turned in by February 1st. So that's how they are able to accelerate. They're able to turn in. The last due date is there in order to keep students who need that structure to stay on track. Students who are going to accelerate are going to accelerate regardless of whether their due dates or not. But there are students who need a lot of structure just to stay on track, and that last due date is there for them.
Okay. How long are the CBE courses? 8 weeks?
We have courses at ACC. We have 3 different semesters. We have the 16-week, which is a regular semester. We have the 12-week semester, which is accelerated, and then we have the 8-week, which is further accelerated which is more intense and more compacted from the 12-week. So we have a first 8-week and a second 8-week. We have courses in both, and we have courses in the 12-week and courses in the 16-week. And that is what is in our registration system in DataTel. So when we built out our CBE program, we did the front end, but there is the back end of CBE, which is the registration systems, financial aid. We didn't break the back end. We need to, that would be the next step in a successful CBE program, is to look at that back end and see how things are done. Now there are places like Polk State, there's other places which did the flex entry, which was every Monday students could enroll for courses, but it was all done manually. Sinclair College had something like that. It was all done manually, where students could come in every Monday. We have students can come in the 16-week semester, in the 12-week, or in the 8-week semester.
Right. Now, Dr. Callan, this one's from me.
Sure.
So you have a traditional course, such as this CBE course, right? This
Yes.
program course. Can
Yes.
you talk a little bit about the successes that you have seen in this CBE course in comparison to that traditional program?
For sure, I can talk about that. We have about 71% success rate in the CBE course compared to 56% in the traditional course. We've also seen far more females who were successful in the CBE courses compared to the traditional course. We've seen far more African Americans who were successful in the CBE course as compared to the traditional course. Furthermore, we have many, as part of our CBE program, we have hired a person, Clark Schaefer, whose only job is to maintain industry alliances. And we have active relationships with 250 companies who hire our interns. And part of our success that we see from this program is the feedback we get from these companies who say, your students come in prepared. The feedback we get from places where our students transfer to who say your students come in prepared. So we have seen a definite increase in successful completion. We have almost doubled, we have not almost, we have more than doubled the number of awards that we all give, like degrees and certificate, after we started our CBE program. We have seen more people, more students successfully completing the classes than we did with the traditional program. So huge successes. We've seen huge successes, and it's just such a let me tell you about my adaptive release course. One of the reasons my students are successful is because they don't see the whole course. They see only a chunk at a time, and they're able to concentrate on that chunk, finish that chunk, and then move on to the next chunk of the course. So they don't see what's due over 16 weeks. They see what they have to work on in that particular module. And they can concentrate on that, get it done, really dig into it, really get mastery of it, and then move on to the next module. Does that answer
Perfect.
your question, Carlos?
Yes, it does. And now they're asking how many students have completed the CBE courses?
We have 1,005 students who have gone through the program. Initially, we thought we would have about 300 to 400, but it has been immensely successful. And the quality of the student we've got is amazing. About roughly 71% of our students already have a bachelor's degree, already have a degree, I shouldn't say bachelor's, a degree. We have a lot of students who've come through with masters. We've had students come through with PhDs. We've had a couple of MDs go through this program. We've had, last semester, we had 2 lawyers, JDs, go through this program. So we have had an amazing quality of student come through the program. Even students who come without any college have very successfully completed this program. Again, we've had, as of fall 2016, we had 1,005 students go through the program.
Wow, impressive number.
Thank you.
Here's a great question from Allison. If you didn't break the back end, how do you handle a student that is accelerating through the course and finishes early? How does that affect financial aid and attendance?
Okay, we did not at all touch the financial aid model. So ACC was accepted as an experimental site for financial aid for one of the 9 experimental sites, but we did not participate in that because part of the reason was the direct assessment piece. And secondly, another reason was that for that, a student who was getting the new financial aid under the new model and they signed up for the CBE, they could never go back to the traditional program. So we didn't touch the financial aid. For registration, let's say a student starts in the 16-week course. They start in Programming Fundamentals 1. They complete that in 3 weeks. So now in the 12 weeks, they can sign up for Programming Fundamentals 2, which is the next part of the course. And then If they finish that within before the 8-week semester starts, which means they finish that course within 4 weeks, they can sign up for a third course in the 8-week semester. So literally they can complete 3 levels of courses within a semester. Now, different colleges are doing this differently. Kahlon College, which was one of our sub-grantees in last year on a Perkins grant, they set up a really nice a web developer certificate, and it was really nice because they set up 3 5-week semesters terms within a semester where students could take one level of course in the first 5 weeks, the second in the second 5 weeks, and the third in the third 5 weeks. So for each college, it depends on how their backend systems allow them to do this and how the existing parameters allow them to do this. So our next step has to be to look at this backend and to see how we can play around with this backend and see how we can configure that to allow a far more flexible entry for the students.
Perfect. From Kelvin, will you pursue direct assessment?
At this point, we're not looking at it, Calvin, but we just recently hired a dean of distance learning whose charge is also to look across the board at CBE programs. And it will be the charge of that dean to probably look at that. And also our team, our exceptionally wonderful team that we had for our grant, for our Department of Labor grant, which was our instructional designer, our multimedia developer, the director of a grant, Dr. Sam Greer, and our industry relations specialist and our student support specialist. Once the grant ended on March 31st of last year, all these people were absorbed by the college, which goes to show that the college is very committed towards expanding CBE to other areas besides the information technology, computer science area. So I'm very excited to see what comes out of that and if there is a discussion about going to direct assessment with that.
Perfect. And lastly, Dr. Callan, we have 3 minutes left. Can you talk a little bit about the Fast Track to Success series and the 2+2 relationships that you're building throughout the state?
Absolutely. I'm so happy to talk about it. So we got the Fast Track to Success grant in 2015. That was our first funding of the Fast Track to Success. And it was funded by the coordinating board. And under that grant, we built an information technology a network of sub-grantees offering with offerings in the IT education area. And we had Alamo colleges in San Antonio. We had Kahlon College, who I told you about their web certificate, and we had a Lone Star College, which did a really innovative project where they are developing a training module for faculty, and this training module itself is competency-based for faculty to design and deliver competency-based courses. So I'm very excited to see that project come up. In the second funding of the grant, we were so fortunate to get it funded second time. We decided that it was time to expand competency-based around the state. So we are going around the state delivering these day-long workshops. We were at Eastfield College last weekend. We're going to be at Texas A&M Corpus Christi this Friday. We've been to Amarillo College. We've been to Texas A&M Dallas. And we just got confirmation today that we are going to go to El Paso Community College. We're going to offer a workshop at ACC. So this has been possible. The Perkins Grant, the Fast Track to Success, basically has been possible due to the success of our CBE program. There are other programs that have been spawned from the success of our CBE program, such as our Women in Technology program. It's an amazing program that we started with a Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation grant, and that was built on the success of our CBE program. So the TAB program, which is the Texas Affordable Baccalaureate, we have just learned a few weeks ago that South Texas College, which is the grant lead on that, and we are the sub-grantees, that we will take this very successful APT program, we will take their graduates and feed them into the upper 2 years, the upper division 2 years at South Texas College of an IT degree for them to get the skills needed for the very in-demand and high-demand IT jobs that are in the area right now. And we are very happy to be kicking off that project very soon, and I'm very excited about that project. And that project is going to really serve as a model of collaboration and a model of getting students through in an accelerated format through a bachelor's degree and get them ready for the workforce.
Perfect. So we have just hit 2 p.m. Dr. Kahlon, I want to thank you for sharing all that wonderful information with us. And
Thank
I
you.
also want to thank everyone that attended. This session will be recorded and we will be delivering it to you via email in case you want to see the recording.
Carlos, can I give a shout out to the Institute for Competency-Based Education right here? This institute is critical to the growth of competency-based in Texas. We need a guide such as your institute to guide other institutions as to how to go about it and to be sort of the guide on the side, if you will, which is a term used in CBE, and guide us through this new modality, which really is old, but in the new format. So I really want to thank you for this opportunity for presenting my course.
Thank you so much. And for those of you that do not know, we are planning a conference in June, I believe.
Yes, yes, June
And
2nd.
we
Yes.
will also share all that information with all the attendees with the hopes that they can make it down to Austin to attend. But thank you for that shout out, Dr. Kahlon.
Thank you. Thank you.
Everyone, I hope you have a great day, and thank you very much for attending again.
Okay, thank you, Carlos. And thanks, everyone.